My neighbor has been watching me through the window for 3 months. And yesterday, he finally knocked on my door with blood on his hands and terror in his eyes. Before I tell you everything that happened, make sure you subscribe. Because this story will make you understand that sometimes the person watching you isn't a threat, but a warning. And you'll want to know what happens when obsession becomes protection. My name is Soren Hayes, and I live alone in a converted loft in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, the kind of space that looks amazing in photos, but offers zero privacy. I'm a graphic designer who works from home, which means I spend most of my time visible to anyone who cares to look. And he cared to look. I first noticed him in July. I was working late, probably 2 in the morning, when I felt it, that prickling sensation of being watched. I looked up from my computer and saw him across the courtyard, standing at his own window. 4th floor, directly across from mine. He didn't look away when I caught him. Just stood there, backlit by his apartment, a silhouette with impossible stillness. It should have frightened me. Should have sent me scrambling for curtains, calling the police, doing something rational. Instead, I felt something else. Recognition, maybe. Like seeing a reflection of my own loneliness staring back. After that, I saw him constantly. Morning coffee at 6, he'd be there. Late night work sessions, there he was. Sometimes I'd catch movement in my peripheral vision and look up to find him watching. He never waved, never smiled, just watched with an intensity that should have felt threatening but somehow didn't. I started leaving my curtains open deliberately. Started wondering if he could see my computer screen, if he knew what I was working on. Started choosing my clothes more carefully, even though I was just working from home. Started performing my life for an audience of one. 3 weeks in, I looked him up. The building directory at the entrance had names and apartment numbers. 4th floor, Unit 4C, Avery Thorne. I Googled him and found nothing. No social media, no LinkedIn, no digital footprint at all. Like he didn't exist outside that window. I should have been more concerned. But loneliness does strange things to your judgment. And I was lonely. Profoundly. Achingly lonely in a way that working from home and being naturally introverted had calcified into something harder to break. So I let him watch. And I watched back. By September, we had a routine. I'd make coffee at 6, and he'd be there, holding his own mug. I'd eat lunch at my desk at noon, and he'd appear with a sandwich. We never communicated, never acknowledged what was happening, but it felt like the most intimate relationship I'd ever had. 2 strangers, separated by glass and 30 feet of air, living parallel lives. My friends thought I was losing it. That's stalking, Soren, my best friend Nat said over drinks. You need to report him. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just there, standing at his window, staring at you for hours? That's the definition of doing something wrong. What if I like it? She stared at me. Then you need therapy, not a stalker. Maybe she was right. But I didn't report him. Didn't close my curtains. Didn't do anything except continue the silent dance we'd been doing for months. Then came yesterday. I was working on a logo redesign, lost in the details of kerning and color theory, when someone pounded on my door. Not knocked, pounded. Desperate, urgent, the kind of sound that means emergency. I opened it without checking the peephole. Avery stood there, and up close, he was nothing like I'd imagined. Taller, maybe 6'3", with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of slate. He was breathing hard, and his hands, God, his hands were covered in blood. I need help, he said, and his voice was rough, raw. Please. I have nowhere else to go. Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door, call 911, do literally anything except what I did, which was step aside and let him in. He stumbled past me into the loft, leaving a trail of red drops on my hardwood floors. I closed the door and locked it, my hands shaking. What happened? I don't have time to explain. Do you have a first aid kit? Are you hurt? Not my blood. He looked at me, and I saw terror there. Real, visceral terror. Please. First aid kit. Then I'll explain everything. I got the kit from under my bathroom sink. He sat on my couch, the couch I'd sat on while he watched me from across the courtyard, and started cleaning his hands with trembling fingers. Let me, I said, kneeling in front of him. You're making it worse. He let me take his hands. They were large, calloused, shaking badly. I cleaned the blood carefully, looking for wounds, but found none. Whose blood is this? I asked quietly. My brother's. Ex-brother, I guess. He came to my apartment. We fought. He fell. Hit his head on the coffee table. Avery's voice was flat, shock settling in. There was so much blood. I called 911, but then I panicked. I have a record. Assault 5 years ago. If they find him dead in my apartment. Is he dead? I don't know. He was breathing when I left, but he looked at me, and I saw the moment he realized what he was asking. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come here. I've been watching you for months, and you seemed safe. Kind. Like someone who might understand. Why were you watching me? Because you looked lonely. And I was lonely. And it felt like we were keeping each other company. My heart was hammering. You should go back. Make sure your brother's okay. Talk to the police. They won't believe me. I have a history. My brother came here to threaten me, to demand money, and I pushed him away. That's all I did. But they'll see the blood and my record, and... Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. They're coming, Avery said, standing. I have to go. Go where? I don't know. Somewhere. Anywhere that isn't here. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Turned back to me. I'm sorry. For watching you. For coming here. For dragging you into this. Wait. I don't know what possessed me, but I grabbed his arm. Stay. Just stay. We'll figure this out. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. I know you watch me at 6 a.m. with your coffee. I know you eat turkey sandwiches for lunch. I know you pace your apartment when it rains. I know. I stopped, realized how insane I sounded. I know enough. The sirens stopped outside. Car doors slammed. Voices shouted in the courtyard. Avery looked at me, and something shifted in his expression. If I stay, this gets complicated. They'll question you. You'll be involved. I'm already involved. Soren, he said my name like he'd been practicing it. Like he'd learned it the same way I'd learned his. You don't owe me anything. I know. Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. Someone shouted, Police. We're looking for Avery Thorne. We stared at each other, and in that moment, I made a choice that would change everything. Bedroom. Closet. Now. He hesitated for only a second before moving. I heard my bedroom door close, the closet door creak, and then silence. The pounding on my door was aggressive, authoritative. I took a breath, steadied myself, and opened it. 2 officers stood there, hands near their weapons. We're looking for Avery Thorne. Have you seen him? Who? Avery Thorne. Lives in 4C across the courtyard. About 6'3", dark hair, maybe covered in blood. Jesus. No. What happened? There's been an incident. We have reason to believe he may have fled in this direction. Mind if we look around? Every cop show I'd ever watched screamed at me that I could refuse, that they needed a warrant. But refusing would only make them suspicious. Of course. Come in. They searched my loft efficiently, bathroom, kitchen, under the bed. They stood outside my bedroom closet for what felt like an eternity. And I thought, this is it. This is where it ends. But they didn't open it. Just glanced inside through the cracked door and moved on. If you see anything suspicious, call this number immediately. One officer handed me a card. Mr. Thorne may be dangerous. I will. Thank you. They left, and I locked the door behind them. Leaned against it, heart racing, wondering what the hell I'd just done. Avery emerged from the closet slowly, like he expected this to be a trap. Why did you do that? I don't know. They could come back. You could be charged with harboring a fugitive. Is that what you are? A fugitive. I don't know what I am. He sat heavily on my bed. I didn't hurt my brother. Not intentionally. We were arguing, and he came at me, and I pushed him. He stumbled backward, hit the table. It was an accident. Then tell them that. With my record, they'll lock me up before I finish the sentence. He looked at me, and his eyes were haunted. 5 years ago, I nearly killed someone. A man who, he hurt someone I cared about. I lost control. Spent 2 years in prison for it. I've been trying to rebuild my life since then, but one phone call, and it all comes crashing down. What about your brother? Is he okay? I don't know. I hope so. His voice cracked. God, I hope so. We sat in silence. Outside, I could hear more sirens, more shouting. The building was swarming with cops. You should turn yourself in, I said. If he's okay, if it really was an accident, they'll see that. Will they? Or will they just see my record and decide I'm exactly what they think I am? I didn't have an answer. Why were you really watching me? I asked instead. The truth this time. He looked at me for a long moment. Because 3 months ago, I was standing on my balcony, trying to decide if I wanted to jump. And then I looked across the courtyard and saw you. Working late, completely absorbed in whatever you were doing. You looked peaceful. Content. Like you'd found something worth staying for. And I thought, maybe I can find that too. So I started watching. Learning your rhythms. Sharing your routine. It sounds insane, but you saved my life, Soren. Without ever knowing I existed. My chest tightened. You can't put that on me. I'm not. I'm just telling you the truth. You wanted to know why I watched. That's why. My phone buzzed. A text from Nat. Turn on the news. Now. I pulled up a local news stream on my laptop. A reporter stood outside our building, urgent and breathless. Confirmed that Joshua Thorne was found unconscious in his brother's apartment with severe head trauma. He was rushed to Harborview Medical Center, where he is currently in critical condition. Police are searching for his brother, Avery Thorne, who has a prior conviction for assault. Critical condition. Not dead, but close. Avery was watching the screen, his face ashen. I have to turn myself in. They'll arrest you. I know. You could run. I could help you. Money, a car. And then what? I spend the rest of my life hiding? Looking over my shoulder? That's not living, Soren. That's just a different kind of prison. He stood, moved toward the door. I should have let him go. Should have stepped aside and let him face the consequences of his choices. Instead, I grabbed his hand. Then I'm coming with you. As a witness. I'll tell them you came here scared, that you were trying to do the right thing, that you're not running. They won't care what you say. Maybe not. But you won't face it alone. He looked at our joined hands, then at me. You don't even know me. I know enough. Why are you doing this? Because 3 months ago, I was sitting at my desk, wondering why I bothered. And then I looked up and saw someone watching. And it didn't feel creepy or scary. It felt like I mattered to someone, even if that someone was a stranger. I squeezed his hand. You're not the only one who was saved, Avery. We stood there in my loft, surrounded by windows that had witnessed everything, and I understood. Sometimes connection doesn't happen through words or touch or traditional means. Sometimes it happens through silence and distance, and the strange intimacy of parallel lives. If I go to prison, he started, then I'll wait. That's not fair to you. Let me decide what's fair to me. He pulled me close, and for the first time, there was no glass between us. Just skin and breath, and the sharp scent of copper from the blood we'd washed away. He kissed me, desperate and gentle, and tasting like goodbye. Thank you, he whispered against my lips. For seeing me. Thank you for watching. We walked out together, hand in hand, into the courtyard where police cars still flashed red and blue. Officers converged immediately, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Avery raised his hands, stepping in front of me, protectively. I'm Avery Thorne. I'm turning myself in. But this man had nothing to do with it. He was just helping me. They took him anyway. Handcuffs, Miranda rights, the whole procedure. He looked back at me once before they put him in the police car, and I saw everything in that glance. Gratitude, regret, something that might have been love if we'd had time. The car drove away, and I stood in the courtyard, watching until the taillights disappeared. That was 3 weeks ago. Joshua Thorne survived. Severe concussion, fractured skull, but alive. He confirmed Avery's story. They'd argued about money. Joshua had come at him aggressively. The fall was an accident. The prosecutor is considering reduced charges. Avery's lawyer thinks he might get probation instead of prison. I visit him at the detention center twice a week. We sit across from each other, separated by plexiglass, and finally talk without windows between us. He tells me about his childhood, his mistakes, his hopes. I tell him about my loneliness, my work, my life.